Sundays in Simsbury. A familiar ring, singing in unison, amplifying the message of inclusion at the First Church of Christ.
We live in a world.
A tune this church has tried to project into the community for decades.
We can rub elbows.
Even when it didn't sound right to some.
She had just talked with the group, told her story.
For instance, Associate Pastor Kevin Weichel tells the story of a church member who, up until her recent death, praised her husband's decision to let a black man join the choir in the 1940s.
Not everyone approved of this.
A bold choice at the time, but a booming voice too good to pass up.
He was adamant and said, I do not care about the color of his skin, I care about the quality of his voice.
That voice, now familiar to millions of people all over the globe, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As a teen, he spent the summers of 1944 and 1947 in Connecticut.
It really was part of history that kind of faded away.
Elaine Lang with the Simsbury Historical Society says King and other black college men took the train from Georgia during the summers for paid work in Simsbury harvesting shade tobacco.
A lot of them really found themselves energized by their experience coming north and having a chance to move freely and without fear, and to really explore what life could be like.
It's believed King's time in Connecticut influenced his decision to join the ministry and then later the civil rights movement.
When I was a freshman in college,
in speeches and writings, King referenced his time in Connecticut, saying it was a bitter feeling going back home to segregation. However, on the bright side, King wrote, "We saw some things I never anticipated to see. After we passed Washington, there was no discrimination at all. The white people here are very nice."
He never thought that someone of his race could eat in a fine restaurant, and yet he went into Hartford and ate in one of the nicest restaurants and was treated just like any other customer.
While racism still existed in Connecticut, King saw firsthand it was nothing like the South, where lynchings still occurred. Women were hit with high-powered hoses, and even kids tortured to death.
Even under those circumstances, he was still committed to nonviolence, right?
UConn history professor Jeffrey Oakbar says because of Dr. King's education and exposure, he saw not all white people were evil and knew this fight was about character.
They will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Dr. Oakbar says Dr. King appealed to people's morals and during protests wanted the world to see how blacks, acting civilized, were being treated and denied basic needs, even the most vulnerable.
A pregnant woman can be brought to a hospital, and white people at that hospital can say she might be bleeding, she's pregnant, but we refuse to give her any sort of medical aid because we only allow white people in this hospital.
the other America.
With a growing national role, Dr. King continued to visit Connecticut over the years, this time fighting for equality.
I have some very sad news for all of you.
It was documented by the Hartford Courant, along with the protest that erupted in Hartford on this day 50 years ago when he was assassinated.
Commemorate and memorialize Dr. King's journey from his childhood.
Decades later, efforts are underway to remember Dr. King with a memorial on the grounds of the Simsbury Historical Society. And at this church, his booming voice still resonates as if from a mountaintop, still singing and preaching about the need for equality.
We're working on it, but I do think our overall mission and what we're aiming for and what we're hoping for, I do think and I hope that he would be proud.
That we as a people will get to the promised land.